Kezia Dugdale.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I start by saying that I welcomed the First Minister's remarks about the opportunity we had to have this debate and discuss it with civility and decency. And can I urge Ruth Davidson to reconsider her approach when we have a chance to reset this debate? Because last week we came together to remember those who lost their lives or were injured in the Westminster terror attack. We united in our condemnation of a barbaric act and reaffirmed our commitment to the values of tolerance and integration, freedom and solidarity. It was right that last week's debate about a second independence referendum was postponed. But the business of the Scottish Parliament has now resumed. And here I am, once again, responding to remarks from the First Minister about a second independence referendum. If it feels familiar to those of us in here, just imagine how familiar it must feel to those outside of this chamber, to people who very rarely tune into these discussions, who want their political leaders to focus on the business of government by delivering good schools and hospitals and on growing the economy to provide jobs and prosperity. But once again, they see us debating the issue they thought that had been decided in a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime vote in 2014. Yesterday's meeting between the Prime Minister and the First Minister summed up where we are in this country today. Two intransigent leaders focused only on the Constitution, whilst the business of government gets pushed to one side. Nicola Sturgeon demonstrated that she has given up any pretence that she'll fight for the best Brexit deal for Scotland and the United Kingdom. Instead of fighting for more powers to come to Scotland from Brussels, it's independence or nothing for the First Minister. And we had the spectacle of Theresa May. Not happy to.
In the spirit that I think we're both committed to here, I would ask her to reflect on how unfair that comment is. I have spent a great deal of time trying to persuade the UK Government to find compromise. I published a paper in December that listed the additional powers that could have been devolved to the Scottish Parliament that would have effectively delivered the federalism that Kezia Dugdale supports. But if we are meeting with a point-blank refusal to do that, what is Kezia Dugdale's argument? That this Parliament should simply step back and accept that we're being taken off a hard Brexit cliff edge with no additional powers whatsoever and even an intention to muscle in on the powers we already have?
Kezia Dugdale.
Can I say to the First Minister, I recognise the work that she did in December to fight for more powers for this place, but I haven't heard a word in the whole of 2017 because it's independence first, last and everything when it comes to her agenda. We also had the spectacle of Theresa May claiming to be the best protector of the Union yesterday. And just ponder that for a moment. The leader of the Conservative Party that has caused so much division in our society, that set Scotland against England in the general election, and whose reckless Brexit gamble brought us to this point, where leaving the EU just provides the SNP with the latest excuse it was looking for to push for another referendum. So some humility from the Tories and a genuine desire to properly engage with this place wouldn't go amiss. Presiding Officer, in the week since we last met, at least 3 issues which would normally dominate the front pages of our newspapers have been buried in the back of the book. We have learned that the SNP has abandoned a promise to reduce the working hours of junior doctors, a promise made by the former First Minister to the parents of a woman who lost her life. We have seen a damning report into the quality and provision of child and adolescent mental health services. And just today, it has been confirmed that Scotland's cancer waiting times have not been met for 4 years. Each of these 3 issues constitutes an individual scandal. Together, they represent a complete abdication of responsibility. But we aren't discussing any of these things. After all, why would the government responsible for the NHS want to debate its 10-year record on the health service, not when there's another independence debate to be had? Now, we all know the outcome of the vote tonight. The compliant Greens will once again back their fellow nationalists in the SNP. And let's not pretend that this SNP Green push for another divisive referendum reflects the will of the Scottish people, because it does not. 85% of the population voted in the last referendum, and we voted decisively to remain in the UK. That is the will of the people, and it should be respected. So my message to the First Minister remains unchanged. We are divided enough. Do not divide us again. Because leaving the UK would mean £15 billion worth of extra cuts to schools and hospitals in Scotland. And every time I'm sat in the TV studio with a member of the governing party and I can see their front bench shaking their heads today, they seek to try and rubbish or ridicule these figures. But they simply cannot deny that these are the government's own numbers. The government's own stats say independence would be catastrophic for working families. That's why I could never support a policy that would hurt our poorest communities. So the question beckons, why would the First Minister? We are just hours away from the start of the formal process of leaving the European Union. The First Minister and I agree that Brexit risks damaging our relationship with Europe. It will threaten thousands of jobs right here in Scotland and hold back our economy. But like her, I accept that Brexit is going to happen. Scotland and the United Kingdom are leaving the European Union. The First Minister has finally dropped the pretence that we could remain in the EU, and that clarity is welcome. But the First Minister has another decision to make now too. Is she going to spend the next 2 years and 100% of her time campaigning for Scotland to leave the UK at the expense of governing? Or will she roll up her sleeves from today and seek to secure more powers for this Parliament when they return from Brussels to Britain? Because tomorrow, Presiding Officer, I will be in Cardiff doing just that, working with the Labour First Minister of Wales, Carwyn Jones, who is prepared to put in the hard work necessary now to secure the best Brexit deal for Wales and for the United Kingdom. Because this isn't a battle between independence and the status quo. It's about the SNP's never-ending campaign for separation and what the people want and voted for, a powerful Scottish Parliament within the United Kingdom. These benches will campaign with everything we have for Scotland to remain in the UK. A UK where political and economic power is in the hands of the many, not the few. A UK that delivers for the people of Scotland. That was our manifesto commitment, and we will honour that tonight by voting against the SNP's plans for another divisive referendum.